she's just amazing.
Welcome to The Great Reboot. I'm Tori Ryden. We created this show as a way to get you information you need during the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. The Great Reboot is also a vehicle to help businesses and organizations, also individuals, who are working to find ways to reinvent themselves, to reboot, to survive. Our guest today is dealing with an enormous, growing trend around the country. The coronavirus pandemic is taking its toll on the mental health of Americans in every corner of our nation. And the need for services like NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, are more critical than ever. Jenna Mehnert is the CEO of NAMI Maine, and I want to welcome you, Jenna. Thanks for taking the time out.
Absolutely, I'm glad to be here.
I know that you're a resource, and you're an educational resource for people who are working in the mental health industry and really helping so many people who need assistance. What are you hearing right now, and can there possibly be enough people to handle the needs that are out there right now?
So NAMI Maine's role, as I described often, is really to be the grout between the formal systems. So we are absolutely here to provide information for clinicians, but more, we fill in the gaps. And so we've been doing a whole host of different programming than we normally do. For instance, we have matched volunteer therapists who are willing to do a clinical check-in with people who feel that they're struggling right now, who don't have a pre-existing relationship with a therapist. It's a new program that we've just launched, and one day after launching it, we had 11 licensed mental health providers complete an application to volunteer their time to support other Mainers. So our role is really across the entire state to look at what are the ways that we can connect people and what are the ways that we can provide resources that really weren't there before or weren't at a kind of level that was meant for this way of operating virtual interactions.
That service that you just mentioned, is there a special way that people can get access to those mental health counselors?
Yeah, so the way that program is working is that we have a form on our website, namimaine.org, for mental health clinicians to complete who want to volunteer their time. And NAMI Maine always has a helpline that people can call, which is the 622-5767 extension 1 number. And then Fred, the very lovely gentleman who answers it, will have a conversation with someone who's looking to have a check-in. And then he and another staff person will go over the list of clinicians and find who they think might be the best match, and they'll make that match. So it really is intended to be available for anybody who feels like they could really use a conversation that maybe was a step beyond a peer support conversation, more than talking to an old friend or a spouse, but somebody who had some clinical skills to kind of check in with them. And I know that many providers have switched to telehealth, and that's great. So if you do have a pre-existing relationship with a therapist, seeing if they're operating now from a telehealth perspective, which they wouldn't have been doing, the first 2 weeks after, but I recently talked to a psychiatrist connected to Maine Health, and they've switched over to telehealth. And with telehealth, they're actually seeing more clients than they had previously been able to see. So, but for folks who don't have a provider but feel like they do need to have a conversation, that's what we created that program for.
It's a great program. What are you hearing back from those who are working, kind of the telehealth end of things? What are you hearing from them? Are the numbers just rising every day?
Yeah, I think that the people who had pre-existing relationships with therapists are absolutely reaching out and requesting services. And so they're able to see people using technology. They've really been able to implement a lot of service delivery with telehealth. The challenge or the concern that we have at NAMI is the folks who are now finding themselves struggling, because these are very uncertain times, who don't have a current relationship with a provider. And so that's why, we've created that opportunity to connect them with people and the opportunity to call our helpline, or there is, of course, the Sweets Are Warm line to check in with people. Because those are really the opportunities to have more of a conversation. And sometimes that's what somebody needs, even if they do have a therapist.
I read someplace that Google searches for the term panic attack symptoms have gone up over 100%. That, everybody, I guess, is just the fear of the unknown has so many people, I don't even want to say on edge. That doesn't even sound strong enough.
Well, I think these are obviously very uncertain times. These are very uncertain times, and we're not really sure how long this is going to last. It's both frightening for individuals. It's frightening for folks who have someone who is high risk. So that level of uncertainty and the lack of routine are really challenging for people from an anxiety perspective. So it doesn't surprise me at all that people are Googling symptoms of panic attacks, because it is simply a lot for people to process. And it's very normal to be struggling with that right now. Trying to create routine is really important, because you can only control what you can control, and trying to feel some sense of control over your daily activities is really helpful right now.
Another big thing people are complaining of is not being able to sleep and just not being able to function. And I think, you kind of touched on that when you said it's important to have a routine to help you function better, I would imagine. But that not being able to sleep, I have heard that from more people than not.
Absolutely. So have I. And I think the importance there is, and I'm not going to try to sound like everyone's mother, but the things that we are supposed to do for our physical wellness are also incredibly impactful for your mental well-being. So by that, I mean eating vegetables, exercising 30 minutes, whether that's just walking up and down your stairs because you don't want to go outside, or doing jumping jacks and push-ups in place, still counts as exercise. Then making sure you're engaged in some type of enjoyable activity. Hobbies are really important. So say you've always wanted to go online and make one of those photo albums that take a long time to lay out. Now's a great time to do that. Finding a hobby is really important right now, as well as, drinking enough water. That sounds silly, but our body is mostly water, and the importance to stay hydrated, and then turning off the news at a certain point of the night.
Information overload, right? Isn't that what that's called?
Yeah,
Gosh.
and people who are watching the news up until they go to bed, your brain is still operating. Your brain is still processing that information. You need to find a way to shut that off and give your brain some time to decompress. There are some really great guided meditation apps that are like $1.99. There's YouTube meditation videos. Now is a really good time to start that. And I'm going to tell you, there's a ton of clinical research about the benefits of mindfulness and meditation on your mental health in general, especially on anxiety levels, and connected to insomnia. So we need to take positive, proactive actions now to manage our own mental well-being during these uncertain times.
I know you've got a whole list of really great resources that people can look through right on your website. But I also wanted to ask you about, another big piece, and we're all being asked to, either look out for our neighbors who might be living alone, although now we can't see them, but we can call them. Isolation is a really big issue, I would think, something that you're hearing a lot about at NAMI.
Absolutely. In fact, we know from Harvard that being lonely has the same impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day on your physical health and your mental well-being. So loneliness is not good for your mental well-being. So finding ways to connect, whether that is a phone call or Zoom, just the ability to outreach and to connect to people. I have 4 brothers, and I started a text chain with all of them and their wives and their kids. And now they're just making jokes all day long. And, it's not something we've ever done before. We're all busy professionals, but the opportunity to connect, to realize, okay, I still have people in this world. I am not alone. And whatever way that works for someone, that is a really important thing to do right now.
I've been trying to write a letter a day or a card and just send it off to people, because as long as the U.S. mail is operating, that's another way to try to reach out to people, I think. I'm wondering also about, so many of us are working kind of remotely from home, which is yet another kind of different new normal, as everybody's calling it. That can also lead to some feelings of kind of isolation, and am I part of a team, and I'm not seeing people's faces, and I miss this interaction in the office, is what a lot of people are saying. Are there also some tips that you can dole out for those people?
Yeah, and I go back to using technology. Microsoft Office has a thing called Teams, where it's instant messaging. So at first, when we went to working from home, when the NAMI staff did, the Teams thing was driving me a little batty because they were all talking all day long. And we still have our staff meeting. It went from once a month to once a week so that we're all able to engage. And we've even created a Zoom lunchroom because staff usually ate lunch together. So now they're sitting on their devices, eating lunch and talking to each other just like they would in the office. And so I think about figuring out ways to foster connection is really, really important, because we are social creatures, and social isolation is not good for our well-being. And so it is figuring out what are the ways that would work for a particular workplace. And like I said, at NAMI, my staff usually eat lunch together. So that was a very natural way for them to stay connected. Next week, we're doing a spirit week where each day has a different theme. So staff are supposed to dress up in that theme and take pictures and send them out to each other. And then we're going to vote about who did that each day's theme best. And so just goofy little things to be able to interact around and feel connected.
Oh, that's so fantastic. I mean, you're not kind of going silent. You're not ghosting out. You are totally involved with your staff, which is incredibly great. Congratulations. That's wonderful. I think that's great that you're doing that. I think about 9/11, and I remember so clearly with 9/11, I have 4 kids, and I remember just trying to help them get through that. They were so young. And so my heart is going out to little kids right now who not only are they not in school, not around their friends or their teachers, although they are doing online learning, it's just not the same. And I wonder what kind of, it's maybe hard to see or to map out, but the long-term impact on kids, what's happening right now, because they are directly impacted by this.
Yeah, absolutely. Kids are impacted. And I think that the long-term impacts of this, there are multiple groups that I am seriously concerned about in terms of their mental well-being. Children, I think it really depends on how creatively their parents are able to handle this situation. And that's not to put pressure on parents of young kids, because I realize that folks who have younger kids are really struggling right now to work and to homeschool and even to celebrate a birthday. A friend of mine who has a younger child, her son's birthday is tomorrow, and she can't go out and buy him birthday presents. She can't take him out for his favorite meal. She was feeling really badly about the inability to celebrate those milestones appropriately in his life right now. And so I think that recognizing that connection is the best approach. So more family game nights, more watching, Disney Channel shows together, more Scrabble, the more interaction that we can have with our kids, the less frightening this will all seem.
I know that you have people, your staff is still working very much. You have a helpline. I was hoping maybe we could talk about how people can reach the helpline, because if they have kind of an emergent question, they might want to call. It's a 1-800 number.
Yeah, there's a 1-800 number. There's also I always remember the 622-5767 because it's a very easy number. Either one of, the 800 number on our website if someone needs to use an 800 number, or just 622-5767. One of the great things about technology is that all of NAMI's employees' work phones are now ringing to their cell phones. So if somebody is connected to NAMI in any way and wants to talk to somebody, they can just call the normal number they would have called and it will go to their cell phone, which is really important. And I do also, when we talk about young kids, I just wanted to make sure I talk about the fact that the Family Respite Program, which is a large contract that we have for families who have a child with a mental health diagnosis or 2 or more developmental delays, is still happening for families who are enrolled, who know their respite provider. And for families looking for some support from someone they don't know, we've actually been able to provide virtual respite, meaning that you have, a child with a mental health diagnosis and you just need a break. You put your child in front of a device, and with a respite provider that you've selected, they could read or sing or engage with your kids. So our respite program's still active. We operate the Waterville Peer Center, still active. We have support groups and family to family all happening virtually now. So a lot of our programming we have been able to continue because we know now more than ever people need mental health supports.
I also want to give out, I know that you've got, I was going to give out the whole 800 number, the 800-464-5767. You press 1, or also helpline at namimaine.org. And on your website, I just pulled this off, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. is when the helpline can be reached. But I think you just mentioned that people can be reached throughout the day? Is it 24 hours that people can be reached individually?
Well, they can, obviously my staff are sleeping at some point, but the concept of the concept of emailing someone, if you see on our website and there's someone you specifically want to talk to, or calling their extension, all of our employees are still very much working every day.
If anybody has really a crisis-driven issue, you also have to call the statewide crisis line, and I'll give out that number, 888-568-1112. Again, 888-568-1112. And I know that what you're offering people is just absolutely priceless, Jenna. What your folks are doing is the kind of the unseen, with mental health being the unseen but very real physical issue. What else can you tell people right now, and maybe families, that they can do to try to, you've given some really good points, but is there anything else you'd like to share to help people get through their days?
I really think that the most important thing is to look at each day and think about what positive thing can I accomplish today. Because now that the governor's order has gone in, I went to the grocery store today already, to kind of stock up, and it's now only 75 people in a Hannaford at a time. And it's going to feel really overwhelming. And so thinking about what can I do today to feel in control of my day today? What do I need to do? What hobby have I wanted to do? And, we did a whole thing the other day on coloring, which is actually really good for anxiety release. Also, playing an instrument, petting an animal, all of those are good for anxiety. So finding some enjoyable things for you to do when you maybe haven't given yourself permission to do them in the past is really, really critical now.
With the numbers of Mainers who struggle with mental health, it's 1 in 4, and that was before the pandemic. So I guess suffices to say that people have more in common than they don't. And do you think that social media will serve kind of a positive, as a positive tool for these people to reach out to one another?
I do think that, we operate one of the state-funded peer centers, which are for folks who have pretty significant mental health challenges, and they are able to continue to connect using virtual resources. I think one of the things that's really important to think about with mental health, and our society has a lot of stigma, people wait on average 10 years before they seek help, is our brain is an organ just like our heart. And so you can experience a time-limited mental health challenge. We all experience anxiety on if a cop car is behind us, or you have to do a presentation at school. But feeling anxious right now is completely normal. I think it's important that we recognize that mental health is on a continuum, and at any point in time, anybody can feel kind of overwhelmed by something. So I think that it's important that folks don't feel pressure that they should feel a different way, or why am I having a panic attack? I've never had a panic attack before. Give yourself permission to recognize that none of us have lived through this kind of experience before, and to be kind to yourself and to those you love.
Well, Jenna Mehnert from NAMI Maine, I can't thank you enough for your words of wisdom and all the information that you've put out there. I wish you guys all the luck and just all good things I know that the numbers are going to grow, people who need this help. So thank you so much, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me let folks know this is happening, that we're here as a resource, that we're very much engaged. And if people feel like there's a need in their community, please let us know. We're trying to be as innovative to meet people's needs as we possibly can be.